Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So we're going to be talking about something today that I really haven't talked about on this channel. It's something this is a video I've been thinking about making since like before I even started relaunching my channel. And it is why I quit teaching. So we're gonna just dive into it all. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my story, like how I came to be a teacher and a little background information, and then we're gonna jump into like the why I left. Okay, so in March 2019, I worked in childcare. Now, I just want to put out there that childcare is real teaching and it is hard. You're teaching them basic skills. You're teaching them, like, I primarily worked with preschoolers, and like I'm literally preparing them to be able to go to kindergarten, to be able to function in a school setting. So that's definitely like it's a big important job, and I'm also caring for these kids while their parents are at work. Okay. So in March 2019, I got my first job. I kind of floated between classrooms. I was new. I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I did that job. And I'm going to be real, like that workplace was a terrible environment to be in. So I left, went to another childcare center. And initially I loved it. So when I first started there, I was working with 2-year-olds. People think 2 is a rough age, and 2 can be rough, but honestly, I feel like 3 can be just as hard, if not harder, just in different ways. But I worked in a 2-year-old classroom, and I really learned a lot, and I had to learn fast. I got really fast at changing diapers and pull-ups, let me tell you. That was kind of the job where I really learned a lot. I learned a lot of lessons the hard way at that job. I worked in the 2-year-old classroom for 5 months, and then I got pulled. Long story, we're not going to get into that. And I became a float. So then I floated, and I literally, while I was floating, I worked in every single classroom. Infants, toddlers. We had 7 different classrooms, and I worked in all of them at least a little bit. And so I floated, and that was the first time I really got to experience age groups. And I realized I really liked working with preschoolers. Especially there was, where I worked, we had like a 3-year-old preschool, and then we had a 4 and 5-year-old preschool. I really loved the 3-year-old preschool room. So I was floating for about 2 months, and then an opportunity came up. The aide in that classroom was leaving, and so I went and told my bosses, I'm like, hey, I know that spot's going to be opening up. I would love to take that spot if you would be willing to let me have it. And they did. About a week after I took the spot in this classroom, that is when COVID hit. It was March 2020, and it was a really weird time to be working in childcare. So we didn't close. We were not required to close, but I don't know if it was like this in every state, but in Minnesota, we were only allowed to take the children of essential workers. So we went from having a class of 16 every day to having a class of 8 every day, which was kind of a weird experience, but it was kind of great. It gave us an opportunity to do some things that we might not have been able to do with as many kids. It allowed us to kind of have more one-on-one time with the kids we did have. And we really did try to make the best of it, even though it was kind of a weird situation to be in. Definitely. So I worked in that classroom, and I had the most amazing teacher working in that room. I learned so much from her. It's been a few years since we've worked together now, but we are still good friends. I love her and I respect her so much as an educator. So we worked together in that classroom for a year. And let me just tell you, we had a really, really rough group of kids. Without going into too many details, several of them were special needs. Several of them had behavior problems. It was really hard, and it was just the two of us. And it was really, really difficult. And we weren't getting any help. We were basically told, suck it up and deal with it. And we did. And we honestly, I feel like we did a pretty good job, all things considered, because from what I heard, the people who stepped in after we left did not do so well. And so, in March of 2021, she told me she was leaving. And initially I was like, okay, maybe. I was really close to finishing my CDA, which is qualifies you to teach in a childcare setting. I was really close to finishing, and I was really hoping that they would give me the lead position. I'd been with these kids. I knew these kids. I knew our routine. They didn't give it to me. In fact, they gave it to a teacher who did not like me and who, I don't know, she just, for whatever reason, didn't get along well with, it seemed like, anybody. I shouldn't say that. But it just, and I was like, I cannot work with this person. And there were a lot of other little factors in there too. So I started looking for a different job, and there was a place hiring a preschool teacher in the town I lived in. So I had been commuting 20 minutes or so. And this was in the town I lived in, literally, that was a 20-minute drive. This was, if I was going to walk, a 20-minute walk. I could walk there if I really wanted to. So I applied. I got a first interview. They called me for a second interview, and I got the job. And that was my first time, being a lead and having my own classroom. And that was an experience. Let me tell you, I learned a lot in those first couple months. You think you know what you're doing, but it's still a learning curve. It's still what word am I looking for? It's still, you're just always learning. But I had to pause there. For a sec. So I started this new job. I had really amazing supportive management. They were so helpful. They were so encouraging, and they really, really believed in me. And that was great, because I feel like at my other job, they really did not believe in me. They didn't believe I could do it. And here they did. And I feel like I did a pretty good job. So I did that for a couple months, and then something happened, and they needed an infant teacher. And I was like, you know what? We're going to give this a try. So for about a month, I went to infants, and that was an experience. Infants are not my thing. They're just not. I would always tell my coworkers when I was still teaching, and be like, it's not the right kind of chaos for me. I just can't do it. But I loved, I loved the time, and I loved getting to, spend time with those little babies. But anyway, I did that. Went back to preschool about a month later for, honestly, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And then they told me I had to move to toddlers. There was, I don't know what word I want to use. There was an issue with, they needed someone qualified for that classroom. And I was very upset. I had worked so hard to be a preschool teacher, and then I was being moved to toddlers. But that ended up being a good experience too. My coworker in that room ended up becoming one of my best friends. And I feel like she learned a lot from me. I learned a lot from her. I felt like we had both been in the profession about the same length of time. So we were kind of sharing knowledge and learning together. So I did that, and after about 6 months of being in the toddler classroom, it had kind of become permanent, and I went to my boss one day and I said, I'm not telling you I'm quitting, but what I'm telling you is that, like, if I don't end up back in preschool, I'm leaving eventually. Like, I'm just not happy being in this classroom anymore. So, yeah, I told her that. And then the next week, someone in that classroom gave their notice. And I got moved back to preschool. Got moved back to preschool. The two staff in there, we didn't get along very well. I'm not going to lie. But I was like, you know what? I'm in the classroom I want to be in. I'm going to make this work. So we were in the classroom. There were issues. I'm not going to go into detail, but let's just say I had been back in there for a little over a month, and both of those staff ended up leaving. And so then it was like very chaotic. Very chaotic because, you know, I had just come back. The staff that stepped in, she had been in preschool previously, but she was just coming back. And then we honestly had whoever was extra. We didn't have another regular staff in our room. So it was really chaotic, and it was like really figuring stuff out as we go along. But, you know, eventually things started going smoothly, and it was going really, really well for a while. And I was really, really enjoying being a preschool teacher again. And then we hit fall, and I was so excited to hit fall because summer, you know, we still are in session in the summer, but, you know, it's a lot more laid back. We're doing more fun stuff. It's not so much the focused learning. So I was so excited going into fall. This was fall of last year. So we're going into fall. I had this moment of like, I was just so happy. Like, we were really teaching. I felt like things were really going well. But quickly things got very overwhelming. I was overwhelmed. I was doing a lot. I was, you know, lesson planning I had separate lesson plans for the older kids and the younger kids, trying to keep that all straight and organized. And then I remember I really got stressed during conferences because I had to do conference sheets for like 30 kids. And that was a lot. And so I was just kind of stressed out, and I wasn't at a point where I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I wasn't there yet. Not yet. Okay. So, you know, we're kind of getting through. And then Christmas time comes around, and things are fun. Christmas time is a fun time to be a preschool teacher. But then after Christmas, it just kind of set in like, I'm not having fun with this anymore. And I'm like, I'm not very happy right now. And so that kind of continued. And in January, I kind of confided in my close friend at work. You know, we were close friends, and we were, you know, we told each other and we trusted each other. You know, I told her things, she told me things. You know, I told her, I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't know if I can it was just getting to be way too much, and I was overwhelmed and stressed, and I felt like I was becoming the type of teacher I didn't want to be. I wasn't as patient. I wasn't as kind to the kids or the staff. I wasn't straight up mean or anything. But I definitely, I don't know if other people saw a change, but I saw the change in myself. And so I kind of really struggled for about 2 months. And then in March of this year, I got an opportunity to move. And now I wasn't going to move right away, but the opportunity came up to move. And so I was like, this is a great opportunity to switch jobs. So I applied at a center at the town I'm still living in, and I just didn't get good vibes from this place. I just didn't. After the interview, it just didn't sit right. It didn't seem like the right fit. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't want to go teach somewhere else. It wasn't that I didn't like the place I was at. It was that I was burned out on teaching. And I kind of came to that realization of like, I just at least need a break for a while. And so I told my boss I was leaving. I didn't have another giant job lined up initially. I literally told her in March, I'm like, I'm leaving in June. Yeah. Gosh, I'm like getting emotional and we're not even to like the tough stuff. So, you know, a couple more months of teaching before I left, and the day before I left we had preschool graduation, and that was just like the perfect ending to that journey. My boss let me like plan out the whole program, and everything went so well. And it's hard. It's hard. I'm trying not to get emotional. But the hard reality of teaching, especially in childcare, is it's super stressful. You are dealing with so much all the time. There's so much going on. And the pay isn't good. You know, I'm not going to go into detail about what I'm doing currently, but let's just say I'm making more money doing a job that I don't need any education for and that is significantly easier. And like when I say more money, significantly more money. And that's pretty sad. That for a job I don't need any education for, I'm making more money than a job I needed education for. And like literally watching other people's children. That's crazy to me. And that's sad that we aren't paying the people who are taking care of kids while parents are at work better. It's sad. Childcare is such a broken system. It's such a broken system. And the parents are already paying so much money that you can't raise rates. Like, it's already a struggle for a lot of parents to afford childcare the way it is. It's just a hard job. It's mentally and physically exhausting. You know, I feel like I have so much more energy now, mentally and physically. I feel like I can work on like my physical health more. I wanted to spend more time on some of my creative projects. I can do that now. I feel like I have time for myself again. I feel like being a teacher became my whole identity, and I didn't want it to be, you know? It wasn't that I hated being a teacher. I wanted it to be a part of my life and not my whole life, and it became my whole life. And I just at a certain point was like, I can't live like this anymore. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep showing up every day and pretending like it's fine when I'm not. Another thing that makes this job really hard is the parents. And I am not talking about all the parents, because I had a lot of really great and wonderful parents, and even parents who I had issues with. Like almost every single parent of almost every kid in my class had something nice to say to me on my last day. And thinking about it now, like sometimes I'm like, if I had heard some of those things, maybe things would be different. But that was one thing that was weighing on me. Like, you don't get a lot of positive feedback from parents. And I feel like when you don't get a lot of feedback in general, but I feel like when you do get feedback, most of the time it's negative. It's something, you did this wrong. Why didn't you do this? And, you know, it's hard because I feel like a lot of parents aren't understanding. Like, I understand how you feel, but at the same time, we have 30 kids. I can't necessarily always make sure that that doesn't happen to your one child. I will try my best, but it's not a realistic expectation. Like, what if every parent was asking me to do X, Y, and Z for their kid? Like, that's impossible. And just, it's frustrating because, like, you know, I'd had conversations with parents, and in one breath they're saying that they understand, but then in the next breath they're complaining about something. And if you're still complaining about this thing, you're not understanding. I'm sorry, you're not. Because if you were understanding, you would understand that some things just happen. And yeah, you just have faith. I know this probably isn't the case for everybody, but I wish more of the parents would have just had faith that we really were doing everything we could all the time. We really were trying our best all the time. And I wish they had just kind of trusted that. Trusted that we were doing our best and doing everything we could. And it's hard when you're doing everything you can and you're basically being told, well, your best isn't good enough. And that's what I felt like. Gosh, I don't want to cry. Like, just, and that was one of the other big things. It's like, I just felt like no matter what I did, I could never do a good enough job. I could never lived up to the standard the parents had. I could never lived up to the standard I had. I could never do a good enough job. I never felt like I was doing enough. I never felt like I was doing good enough. And, you know, my boss, she really tried to help me through that. I tried to, you know, be like, you are doing a great job. You do so good. And I just didn't believe it. I just didn't ever feel like I did a good enough job. And at the end of the day, I just wasn't happy. I wasn't happy anymore. Like I said, I didn't feel like I was living my life for me anymore. And I realized I need to go try and find something that makes me happy. Now, I will say I have kind of considered going back to teaching. I don't know if that's actually something I'm going to do at this point, but I don't necessarily love the job I'm doing, but at the same time, like, I don't know, the idea of going back to teaching is just, like, I think about it, and, like, there are things I miss, but then at the same time, it's like, you are getting paid more, and I don't think about my job when I go home. When I was teaching, I was constantly thinking about my job when I wasn't at work. Now, I just go home and I just do whatever. I don't think about my job until I have to go back the next morning, you know? And that's worth something. Oh, and another thing, no benefits. No benefits. That's not the case at every childcare center, but a good majority, there are like little to no benefits. Not any type of benefits that you'd expect from most full-time jobs. And that sucks that like we are treating the people that like are working in childcare so poorly. And that's a lot of times why we don't get super great people, because the people who are really great get burned out, or they get tired of making such little money for working so hard. I really want to advocate for all of the people I know that still are working this profession, because things need to change. Things need to be better. And I know this is a struggle not just in childcare, but in the education system as a whole. Teachers are leaving left and right. And there's reasons. There's a lot of reasons. Like, I could go on for hours. But I just want to know, like, if you are a teacher and you are struggling, like, I'm here. I hear you. I understand. I've been there. And at the end of the day, I had to do what was best for me. I had to do what I needed to do. I just mentally, it was getting to be too hard on my mental health. But, yeah. But now that I'm out of that, I really want to try and spend time advocating for my friends who are still working in that profession, because there's so much change that needs to happen in childcare and the whole education system. It's so messed up. So, yeah. Alright, guys, I'm just rambling at this point. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit different. I know it was long and rambly, but it was something I just had to put out there. Alright. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.